Welcome to Back in the Box, your weekly dose of discussions and stories shared about how we felt we were kept in certain boxes in our lives by society and close family members who expected us to sit in a box and stay in it. In our podcast, we aim to lift the lid on all the times we try to break out of boxes.
I'm Em.
And I'm Z.
We are both British South Asian women and are lifting the lid on all of our personal experiences and doing so as two friends having a light-hearted conversation. And through healing, we're now in a position to be able to talk openly and vulnerably in the hope that you may also be able to resonate with our experiences.
Join us to lift the lid on that box.
Let's really start from the ground up. As we all know, it's all about expectations in terms of what our parents wanted marriage to look like for us. Did you want to start, Em?
Yeah, sure. My parents, they had an arranged marriage themselves. Well, they didn't see each other until the day they actually got married. A bit like that program, Married at First Sight. They were ahead of the game with it. Their thinking was based around everyone else was doing it in the community. So really, they brought that to how they thought about how they wanted their children to get married. And one of the main things for them was religion and at that time, caste as well. A huge barrier and a box, you know, that traditional way of finding a suitable person to marry based on the things like we've done back home in India. That's what they wanted. They had to marry someone from the same religion back at home in India and also the same caste. So it was a really, really narrow box and pool of people to choose from in England, though, for their children, including me. You know, my parents were getting matrimonial lists. All parents with the same age children were like competing to find these eligible bachelors for their daughters who'd come of age. And it was like, oh, we found our daughter a doctor to marry, you know, like it was some sort of big status symbol.
But to be honest with you, to be a doctor or a dentist or anyone in the medical field had that badge of honour, didn't it? It was like, oh my God, you are the most eligible bachelors out there.
Exactly. And they were snapped up like that, weren't they?
Yeah. Regardless of whether they were good looking or not, it was like, you know,
yeah,
just the fact that you got doctor that's enough.
That is enough, yeah. But the other thing that they were worried about for us was being left on the shelf. So there was this huge urgency that once my child has finished university, that we must start our search for these eligible bachelors. So you're 21 and you don't want to be left on the shelf because if you get past 24, no one will want to marry you. Oh, the shame of it all. That's what they were thinking. And also, I guess, looking back subliminally, they were thinking, actually, we're good parents if we get you married off in the time frame and get you settled down into married life. Possibly they're thinking, oh, if our daughter's a spinster, she might stray and lo and behold, find someone on her own. Oh, the shame of it. Let's make sure she's on that righteous path. So my dad had many arguments with me and he had also ingrained in me tera muh bahut khulla hai, tera kadi bhi nahi vyah kamyab hona. Your mouth, you've got such a big gob, you will never be successful in marriage. And you know, I had this really stubborn and determined streak in me to want to prove him wrong. And I had this phrase and my family still laugh about it: I will. And I will be successful. I am going to prove you wrong.
I will be successful in marriage.
I know.
Carry that.
Yeah, no matter what. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So still heartbroken because, like I said in the previous episode, I'd lost my best friend who I told everything to, my soulmate at university. And it was like a grieving process for me. It lives with you for life when you have found your soulmate and you have to leave them for no reason but because of these constraints that my parents had. And it was like a big weight and a bereavement. And cutting off my emotions and closing my heart, sort of detaching my emotions really, made that process more bearable for me. What were the expectations from your parents in terms of marriage, and what did they look like for you, Z?
You know, to be honest with you, I think it was probably the same from my mum, at least. Like, she wanted me to have an arranged marriage. She wanted me to marry a doctor that we had that were in a part of our cousins. Whereas I think my dad was quite progressive in his thinking. So I think if we wanted an arranged marriage, I would have got one at 18. We had suitors come round at 15, like I said before, who were doctors and dentists, who were part of the extended family in terms of cousins. So they were there. My dad just never took them up. He just delayed it and delayed it. And I think he did that for a reason. The fact that he gave me my freedom to go to university wasn't a way of him saying, I don't want you to be part of this arranged marriage. I don't think he ever thought for 1 second that I would stray, you know, or I would marry my husband now at all.
You were the golden girl after all, weren't you?
I was that golden girl. I was 100% that golden. And I was the golden girl in my dad's eyes as well, you know. So for him, he just never thought that I would do anything against him. So he gave me that level of freedom and he never got me married. Whereas my mum, if she had the power, she would have got me an arranged marriage and she would have cared about my well-being or my health or my physical health. It would just be perception.
Same, really, yes, for my parents. And wow, I had prospective suitors lined up for me. My parents actually went on these matrimonial lists. It was like a little mission for them. And word of mouth from extended family, where are these eligible bachelors of the right religion and caste? They had to fit in that box. Then came the trips to the prospective suitors. I said to my parents, if we're going to do this, I'm definitely not doing it the long-winded way, which was like parents would meet each other first and then the guy and the girl would get to see each other. I went, no way, Jose, am I going to do that. One trip is all I agreed to. So probably feeling quite aggrieved by it, but knowing that there was no other way to get me on board, they agreed to it. So that's when the travels to the different suitors began. And I remember in particular, one of the trips, we went to Gravesend. It probably took about 3 hours from where we lived. And my dad was cursing. It was such a long journey. And I sat there once we got to the house and saw the parents. And then the guy came in and one look. I mean, I was all about looks at that time. In my head, I was thinking, I'm going to have to wake up with this guy every morning. So he better look good. If I don't find him physically attractive, it's a no-go for me.
100%. I can totally get that. It's just like, you know, you're waking up to this guy, this person every day.
Oh, and Z, I saw the guy and I was like, no, kill me now. I turned round to my mum and said, I want to leave. And my dad,
was he that ugly?
well, you know, he definitely
not a looker. Let's put it that way. Let's be polite. He wasn't
a looker in my eyes. He might be in somebody else's. Oh, and my dad eyeballed me, and I just sat there making no eye contact with this guy. And his parents were like, "Go on, you two, go off, go and have a chat in the other room." And I looked at my dad and went, "No. It's okay. I'm all right. No, thank you." And my dad was absolutely livid with me. He just smiled at the parents and said, "She's a bit shy." But in the car on the way home, I got such an earful that we'd gone all that way. And the least you could do is talk to the guy. And I was like, no, what's the point if I didn't like him? So...
Do you think they could have saved time if they actually had photos?
Do you know what? That would have been a really good idea. I don't know why that didn't happen. You're right. Why didn't that happen at that time?
Why did that not happen?
Definitely missed a trick there, didn't we? Oh, and then another visit. I distinctly remember going to Nottingham and I had great fun traveling around the country being paraded off. No, I didn't really. But my dad did try and persuade my mum that I should wear Indian clothes, to look like a good little Indian girl with traditional morals and values. And I was like, no, that's not happening. Thank you very much. Anyway, this time the guy seemed okay. So I thought, okay, yeah, I'll have a chat with him in the kitchen while the parents were chatting in the living room. And he told me he had one great love of his life. And I thought, yeah, he's going to tell me he doesn't want to get married and that he's already got someone in mind. Secretly, I thought, thank you, God. That's brilliant. And then he went on to tell me she slept in his bed with him. And I'm like, okay. And his beautiful love of his life was called Glubble, the Alsatian. Glubble meaning rose. So,
Oh, right.
he said,
Okay.
if a girl doesn't love her, this lovely Glubble Alsatian, then I can't marry her. So I am totally scared of dogs.
It's hilarious. That was your exit.
Oh
That was your
my
exit
God.
strategy, wasn't
That
it?
was another one on the reject pile. Another one bites the dust. I am so afraid of dogs. I've had such bad experiences as a child of being chased and licked by Alsatians, Rottweilers, Labradors. It's like I'm a magnet for this sort of thing. And he tried to do what some may call exposure therapy by bringing his Alsatian into the kitchen, at which point I screamed and Glubble was no sweet smelling rose and started barking at me.
That was so funny.
I started crying. The parents were like, what's going on? And I ran out the kitchen, the dog. So, yeah, just a few of my little stories about going to see Suitors.
That is so funny. So, how did you actually meet the husband?
So I met my future husband, of course, the right religion and caste for my parents. And actually, we'd been sort of like in and out of our lives since the age of about 11 and been to different weddings. We always had to laugh together. As we got older, yes, we flirted. Interesting, I never saw him while I was with the other guy at uni. And I thought to myself, very shallow, I know. But yeah, he'll do. He's actually all right looking. Yeah, I find him attractive. The best of a bad bunch.
That's so your day.
Your
Right,
day.
looks are good. Done.
That's it. I can sleep in the bed and wake up with you every day and look at your face and not think, I want to vomit. Did I look in depth at his personality? No. Did we have lots in common? No. Did we have a deep connection? No.
But the man looked good.
But the man looked good. It was all about lust, wasn't it? Did I really get to know about his background and relationships with his family? No. Was he alive? Yeah. Did he look interested in me? Yeah. Did he suck up to my mum and dad? Hell yeah. And did everyone around him like him and say good things about him? Yes. So we met when we were older, after I was 21, we went for a drive. We had a laugh, we got on, I was physically attracted to him. So I said yes to my parents, who by this point were like, thank the Lord, she's actually said yes at long bloody last to somebody. And the marriage date was set for 6 months' time. So we dated, actually, which was quite unusual as well at that time. And we dated because we lived near each other before marriage. And normally in those days, couples would only have a few phone calls with each other. So I actually felt quite lucky that I was able to do that. And both his parents and my parents approved of it. So that was actually good. And looking back, it was all very romantic, lots of whining and dining and not much depth still, lots of physical attraction. Like I said, I think it was definitely just lust. There was no love, looking back on it. But enough about that. So how did you introduce your boyfriend and now husband to your Muslim family? Because you knew he was the one.
Yeah, I did actually. Just to give context of my of the boyfriend, now husband. It's difficult to say that. Like, it's like 30 something years on, boyfriend, now husband. But anyway, like I said, he was a black guy. I was a Muslim girl, eldest Muslim girl. So, being attracted or even thinking about marrying a black guy 30 plus years ago, it was like a massive no-no. It's not even a massive no-no. It's just like, what are you thinking? You are going to die. Like, you just don't even go there. What made me decide that he was the one was the fact that I had a car accident, and this car accident more or less left me for dead. So I was about 19, I'd say, 19, 20. It was our placement year. I literally passed my test within that year. And you know what they say, you have more accidents in your first year. I was reckless. I was a fast driver. I love speed. I did not care.
I know what you mean. I actually had about 3 accidents the first year that I actually passed my test.
I had the one accident, and it was the worst accident ever. So this was on the motorway, M40, rolled on the motorway, ended up 14 stitches front of my head, back of my head. Was lucky that I survived. They had found blood in the back of the car. Anyway, I woke up in hospital. I was unconscious for a few days, and then woke up. I had a realisation then that I didn't think anyone in my family actually loved me. And the reason why I thought that was my brother was the last person to see me before I got in the car. So he knew I looked good, because I did look good. I distinctly remember what I wore. I wore these checked capri pants, a white wrap over top. I did my hair, and I looked on point.
The bomb.
I looked the bomb. To me, I looked the bomb. When you look good? I look good that day.
Oh, you look good all the time.
I look good, right? I didn't look so good in the hospital. But the first thing he said to me when I woke up and I saw him, he goes, "You don't look so pretty now, do you?"
Oh,
I
gosh.
thought, what a thing to say, And then my dad was there, and I had really bad injuries. Like, my face was totally swollen up. Like, my nose was totally smushed. I've had to have 3 constructive surgeries done to my nose. I had 14 stitches front of my head, back of my head, and it's going to go off into a shake. So I looked like the Elephant Man. My whole face was swollen. You really couldn't recognise me. And my dad said, "I wish you had died."
That is just horrendous.
It
Such
is.
a traumatic event to go through. And like you say, you could have lost your life. That must have been so upsetting for you, just not knowing, lying there in bed, what your future was going to be, and to hear those sort of comments on top of that.
I think at the time I was like, it was like an out of body experience. I think I just detached all emotions, because I had gone through so much. I didn't have a mirror. Then it wouldn't give me a mirror for a whole week for me to see myself. And just hearing those words, I thought, I just don't think anyone in my family actually loves me. And I think that was the realisation I had. But I remember my boyfriend at the time would come when my parents left. So he would come in the evenings. And me looking like that, my boyfriend wasn't a man of many words. He's not the most romantic of people. So he's not one to shout and stream me with love. But he wrote on my back with his fingers, "I love you." He's kind of like sketched that out with his fingers.
Yeah.
"I love you." And to me, I thought, oh my gosh, if someone could actually love me like me looking the way I do, which is at my lowest, the worst anyone could actually look, basically. And he loved me for being me. That to me was unconditional love. It's something that I just didn't experience, if I'm completely honest with you.
It's not that superficial love just based on looks. It was that deep soul love that he had for you.
Yeah.
How
Absolutely.
beautiful.
Yeah. And, unbeknown to him at the time, that man was locked in then. When he said that, I was like, right, that is it. You are locked. You are not going anywhere. You are mine. I think that incident gave me a second chance in life. It made me realise that I've been given a second chance for a reason to live. So I decided there and then, I'm never going to please everybody. I heard those comments from my family. When I was the most vulnerable, when I love and they didn't give me that love, I'm never going to please them. So I need to be able to do what I want to do. And I found this love, which I've been seeking all my life, was just to be loved. And I just thought, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to marry this person. So that's when I decided I was going to marry my boyfriend at the time. Remember, I had a whole load of Asian friends, never really went out a cultural thing. And they all told me I was going to go to hell if I married my boyfriend. Everyone stepped away from me. Everyone stepped against me. at the time, because I was still quite, religion and faith was still really important to me. It made me kind of look really deep in terms of like, why would God judge love? Yeah. And how can love be a sin? So all these people telling me that I was going to go to hell, all these people telling me that what I was doing was a sin, I just didn't believe it. And I just didn't believe any of it. To me, I just kind of logically reasoned with myself to say, this is culture, this is expectations, this is perception. And the shame and guilt that comes into it, I'm not going to absorb that, because this to me isn't shallow. It isn't lust. It isn't something that's on surface level. This to me is love. So, to fall in love with a black guy 34 years ago, a big no-no. But, he made me feel alive. He made me feel excited every day. That to me was going to be marriage. And we got married. Oh my God, I want to get married all over again now.
Oh, that has given me goosebumps. What a beautiful love story. And pivotally, it gave you the strength to really pursue that love, didn't it?
Yeah, it's weird how a life event actually make you realise and question everything. And I don't think you should take such a big life event where it's almost death that comes to you or close to you that makes you wake up. But yeah, it did. But, talking about weddings and, all that sort of thing.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about what was the wedding like for you?
Yeah, wow. That program, Big Fat Gypsy Weddings? Well, I got a big fat Indian wedding. Oh my goodness. So that wedding was planned in the next 6 months after I said, yes, this is the person I'm going to marry, a Punjabi Indian wedding. And they are a big affair, as you know. I mean, they're always banging, and the drink, the bungalow, the vibes, they are like buzzing events. And this was not organised by me or my fiance, but my parents. So I had nothing to do with the wedding organisation. They went into overdrive. I mean, buying bottles of whiskey, Bacardi, vodka, Coke, the juice cartons and boxes of crisps ready for the weddings. Do you remember going to the weddings where they had all these tables strewn with the crisps and all the drinks just laid out? And the guest list was also not decided by me. It was decided by my parents. And they invited the whole of my dad's Bind village. So we had the village there. People that I didn't know, but in my parents' side would have taken offence if they weren't invited. So the numbers at the wedding, due to the capacity of the hall, was around 300. And of course, taking out the numbers for the groom's side and my parents' friends and relatives, well, that left about 5 friends that I could invite.
5 out of 300. What the hell?
I know. I can honestly say, though, I wasn't bothered. And nor did I really care about the wedding arrangements. It was what was expected. And because I was going along with the whole thing, I just went with it. I enjoyed all the lead up to it, don't get me wrong. It was what I'd seen on TV and Indian films, all the excitement of buying all the wedding gear. My dad's one piece of advice was keep your mouth shut if you want this marriage to be successful. Don't be arguing like you do with me.
I wouldn't call your dad the ideal matchmaker, would you?
Not really. I mean, you like to give me
marriage
little
advice.
Nuggets of useful, and I'll put that in inverted commas, advice. So the day went really well, except for the part with the small hit of the fire alarm going off in the middle of the ceremony. And then it came to saying goodbye to my parents. And I think it really hit me then. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to be living with him and his family in their house. And I don't think I'd really considered the implications or the repercussions or anything about that at that point in time. I know that sounds really weird. And also the fact that I was expected to behave like a daughter-in-law in the house now, not just someone who was used to popping in and out like when we were dating.
Wow, that sounds pretty scary, if I'm completely honest with you.
It was the scariest feeling ever. And I felt all on my own. What was your wedding like then, Z?
Nothing like yours. It was like me, myself, and hubby. So it was like really peaceful. I think because both of us came from like two different faiths. So his mum was a devout Christian, and my family obviously were Muslims. So to both of them, we were going to go to hell, to be honest with you. And his dad was really good. His golden nugget of advice to my husband was, if you marry a Pakistani or an Indian girl, you're going to get chopped up. So I think I thought, he was right.
Well, both the dads had great nuggets of advice, didn't they?
They did. But for them to say I was gonna, that line is as long as my arm, of people telling me I was going to go to hell. I lost close friends who didn't want to associate themselves with me. When I graduated, I moved straight into London. I didn't want to risk getting a Brummie accent because we were in uni in Birmingham. So I wanted to get out into London straight away. For me, actually graduating and knowing that I wanted to marry my boyfriend, I didn't want to lead a double life. Like, out of respect, I knew the best decision for me was to tell my parents straight away. Like, I wasn't moving back home. I was moving into London with him. And I didn't want anyone finding out about us and going back to my parents about it. I wanted to be the person that told them straight away. So deep breath. And I remember this was a big day. Yeah. I remember it was like yesterday, but I went straight to my dad to let him know that I had a boyfriend and I'm going to get married.
You were really strong to be so upfront about what you were doing, because as we know, many people in our culture either run away or hide it from their parents, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I can see why. And I totally get it,
Absolutely.
But I totally get it. But I just had this really strong feeling inside me that I knew what I was doing was right. And it comes back down to, would God judge love? And I was so strong in my belief that he wouldn't. And what I was doing was not a sin, it was cultural. So for me, it was like I needed to give my dad that level of respect because he's given me so much. So I needed to give him that respect. It didn't go down too well, if I'm completely honest with you. He was very much like, I'll give you anything, because money was always a way to buy people off. I would give you anything if you didn't do this. At the time, it kind of felt like I was picked some random black guy off the road or something. But, and I said, no, I don't want anything from him. So for me, it was just like, this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to bring shame to you or shame to the family.
Do you mean you didn't want it to be conditional?
Yeah, basically. Because, with Asian upbringing, sometimes it kind of feels, it can be materialistic, like everything has to be perfect. So, with me wanting to marry my boyfriend, I wanted to make it very clear that I didn't want anything. Like nothing, basically. And if I brought shame to the family, I would be happy to exclude myself completely and walk away from the family. But my dad was very much, no, I don't want you to do that. You can come to the house, but you come to the house through the back door and not the front door.
Wow.
So at the time I was like, okay, that's a bit unusual. But I knew what the logic was, the fact that he would come out the front door, see me walk through the back door. So he would never greet me, but he would just see me walk through the back door. That was his way of still keeping me in his mind, or actually visibly seeing me without actually saying hello.
Right.
So that was his compromise. But back to the wedding, we had to get married in a mosque because I was Muslim. No mosque would touch us because they were like, unbelievers could enter the mosque, basically, because he wasn't converted Muslim, which I totally respected. But I still wanted to get married with an imam. So we found this imam in Baker Street, Marylebone in London. He owned a bookshop, but he did nagars in his bookshop in his basement, basically. I know, it was really bizarre, but I was like, okay, it's cool, it's pretty cool, okay. So then I told my mum, and my mum and my two sisters came. She bought the rings for us, and we had our nagar done there. And my husband chose a Muslim name, and he converted to be a Muslim that day as well.
So why did your mum approve of the marriage?
It's a weird one, actually. I never really thought about that. Like the word approve. I think because it was a Muslim imam, and I think for her, because an imam had said, yes, I will marry you, that was good enough for her to say, okay, well, this marriage has been approved.
In your faith?
In our faith, yeah. So for mum to sort of say, okay, well, an imam who is then an educated, respected elder has approved it, there's no reason for me to disagree.
Okay.
So she came and we did the nagar together. But, it wasn't official. So for me, because it wasn't official, I didn't really want to go to the registry office. I didn't want to get married in a church. I was like, I'm not doing that in a church. Are you mad? I'm not a Christian. And religion was still quite important to me. And the fact that it would be all his family, all his friends, and I didn't know any of them. And I was like, no, if none of my family are coming, none of your family are coming, and we're going to do this together, sort of thing. So we got to this compromise. And back in the days, we'd go into a travel agent and book a holiday, and they would actually have these dream weddings in magazines. It was just like, oh, you can get married as a dream wedding abroad. I was like, oh my gosh, we can get married abroad. Should we book a holiday to get married abroad? It was like, yeah. I was like, okay, let's do it. 2 weeks later, that was us.
Wow.
So it was literally just the two of us on a beach and get married. I totally believe that marriage is just two people.
Oh, how wonderful. It was obviously more meaningful for you as it was him that was there from the beginning and him who alone was there for you after the accident. That's just really beautiful.
Yeah, and I think for both of us, because we don't like to be the centre of attention, and we'd never liked the thought of having so many people there who we didn't know or who didn't really know us. So we were quite happy going off, just the two of us, and ended up playing bingo. We ended up being a wedding night. As how romantic we were. It's going to bring me on to your 1,000 people in your marriage. So tell us, what was life like after marriage?
Okay, I don't think I really knew what to expect, to be honest. Again, didn't ask what life would look like after marriage or think about it. I think I literally had my head in the sand, but more about that in a minute. So we didn't actually spend any time in the UK after the wedding before we flew off for our honeymoon in the Caribbean. And it was really great. We really enjoyed it, to the point I can't swim. And I got a bit of Dutch courage after some rum punch 69. And so I decided to go snorkeling, not being able to swim, just with a life jacket on. And it was amazing. I was so fearless about those sort of things. So there was a boat party. And yes, the drinks were flowing. And I remember the hubby saying, don't drink too much. And I was like, well, we're going to have a laugh. It's fine. We got dropped off at the pier by the shore. And yeah, I was a little bit tipsy. Okay, super tipsy. And as I was walking along the beach, stumbled sideways and splash, fell in the sea. And still determined to show I'm not tipsy. How you do when you're a bit like tipsy and don't want to admit it. I got up and started walking on the sand and tripped. And yes, face planted into the sand. So yes, now I looked like a yellow snowman, which I personally thought was hilarious. The hubby was not so amused. In fact, he was embarrassed by me and not for me. The following morning, I woke up to silent treatment and a sour face. This is on our honeymoon, remember? And which then led to him using abusive language and calling me an effing bitch for drinking so much and being selfish. I was so shocked and so upset. It actually, I think, broke my heart. Can someone who acts and speaks like this to their wife really love her? And it really made me question everything at that point. I'd never been spoken to like that by my boyfriend at uni. It was always with love and respect. And that's the first time I thought, I've made a huge mistake. And this person standing in front of me wasn't joking, having a laugh. This was a completely different person, an angry, scary, eyeballing monster. And I spent the day on my own and cried a lot. He never apologised and he didn't want to talk about it and just brushed it under the carpet. It started to make me think, what have I got myself into? My parents have just paid tens of thousands of pounds for the wedding. And I can't just go back and say, no, I've changed my mind. And I was thinking about the hurt, the embarrassment, the shame that would cause for them. And then also, I guess I thought, well, maybe this is a one-off. Do you know what? I'll address it when we get back home and not on the honeymoon. But we never did. He got angry every time I tried to bring it up. So I just thought, on the honeymoon, I'd just soldier on through the honeymoon and enjoy the fact that we're in a beautiful place. And he'll realise he has made a mistake and not do it again. So after the honeymoon, after that incident, returned to the UK, and there was another big shock to my system. We talked about the thousands in the marriage.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely felt like that at home as well. I moved into a small 3-bedroom house with 7 other people. 2 lots of relative couples who'd come over from India for the wedding. And of course, it's never a short visit because they have to make the most of their time while they're in the UK. So yeah, they stayed for 6 months. And one of them taking a job, a cash in hand job to earn money on the side while they're here. And I didn't know this, but a lot of people do this. It was all news to me. It was claustrophobic for me, and it felt like everyone was living in each other's shoes. And we got out in the evenings quite a bit, and that was also frowned upon. Newly wedded, and they're always out, they're never at home. And I didn't realise at the time, but it was quite the norm for the hubby not to spend time at home. What was lovely was that they did make food between them for the whole family, and I wasn't given any household duties. So I was like, yeah, this is nice. And also I wasn't expected to give any of my earnings for the upkeep of the house, which is quite normal in Indian culture, isn't it?
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that was quite lucky though, sort of thing, because at least that you were given it a little bit for yourself, as it were. So that kind of like independence.
Yeah, that felt like my freedom. Yeah. So I was working, and again, this escape and that freedom in the evenings gave me that escape from the box that I was living in. I'd literally put myself back in a big box. I went to work, got home, and was expected to do burning help. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's like blessing by touching the feet of elders. So on my in-laws and the extended family elders, I had to put a junni, like a cloth on my head, with my work suit on as soon as I got in, because as soon as you see them when you enter the house, you're meant to do it as a sign of respect for elders. And I've literally felt like I'd gone back to the dark ages. And it made me realise that the family wasn't so liberal and forward thinking as I'd first come across. Those first sort of impressions were not real. Also noticed that the husband didn't really have anything of sentimental value in his bedroom. No photos. And there was nothing personal in there, which I thought was really, really odd. And just these little things kept happening, like he'd want the radio on when we fell asleep, and he knew that I couldn't go to sleep with it, and he didn't care. He said, no, we're just going to have the radio on. He wanted his tea made in a certain way, and if I didn't get the order of putting the things in his tea the right way, he got cross. And I thought to myself, what an overreaction to that. But I just let it go. In my head, I was thinking, don't sweat the small stuff. And I didn't really know him well enough to know these habits before we got married, because we never lived together. I think the big change came when all the relatives from India went back, and I was expected to make the Indian food and make the rotis, the chapatis when I got home from work. And that wasn't a problem, as I'd learned how to make food at home when I was a teenager. But to be honest, I was a bit out of practice and living off English food for about 8 years. In particular, super noodles were my favourite. But what I found really odd was that no one helped like my family did back home. My dad can cook and always help my mum in the kitchen. She was never on her own. Here, they all sat down to watch TV, and I was left in the kitchen on my own. And then things really started to change when the hubby expected me to get up at the same time as my in-laws at the weekend to make them tea first thing in the morning, as they were up early. And also he started going out by himself in the evening to the pub with his single mates till 1, 2 in the morning and getting really drunk, which I found out later was the norm for him before he got married. And I was expected to stay at home and keep the in-laws company. And to be honest, this in itself was really awkward. And as you know, so many shows, you don't know when certain scenes are coming up, uncomfortable sex scenes or intimate scenes in the programmes. And I didn't want to watch those with my in-laws.
Yeah.
So I used to be in the bedroom on my own, wondering, where is my husband? I want to be with him, but there's no way of contacting him because, again, there were no mobile phones back then. And when I addressed this behaviour with him, he started swearing at me. And he actually ended up dragging me off the bed by my hair. And I remember screaming and crying, and I went to my father-in-law and I said, I'm going to call the police. That's physical abuse. And he begged me not to and told me, look, don't worry, he won't do it again. I said about him going out late at night, and he said, well, he's just out with his mate. He's not doing anything wrong. Basically condoning his behaviour and giving him a free pass to continue, which he did. I, at that point, left the house and stayed with my sibling for about a week, and I wanted to leave him. And I knew I'd made a huge mistake. I mean, it literally just been about 3-4 months since I'd been married. And the hubby didn't contact me the whole week. And when we spoke, he apologised and he said it was a huge mistake and it wouldn't happen again. And you know what? I believed him and I stayed. And I was also thinking it's not even a year since we've been married. And I can't give up trying to make it work. You know, that thing, I will make it work. He will change. I can help him to understand. He's been through a lot of trauma in his younger life. He needs my help. If I love him and be there for him, he will change. All of these things were going through my head. And living with the in-laws was not helping us as a couple. And I thought the reason for the hubby not spending time at home with me was because he didn't want to be at home with his own family. Then my life changed and I fell pregnant. And I felt like I'd been given a pass to get out. And there was no way I was staying in that house with my in-laws and raising my own family there. I wanted my own house. So I saved up like crazy enough money to get a deposit for a house. And surprising to me, this led to a big major blow up with the in-laws. They wanted to all move in together into a bigger house. And there was no way on hell and earth that this was going to happen. I thought, this is not only my passport out for me, but the hubby can actually feel less constrained and have more freedom by breaking out of that family box, because I thought that was why he was trying to go out so much and have the chance to actually build our relationship as a couple and a family together. I thought that he and I would finally be able to live happily as a family in our own home. So the compromise was to live near the family home, which we did.
Wow. You know, to be honest with you, I can only thank you for sharing so openly. 'Cause I'm sure this is going to resonate with so many of our listeners during that period of your life.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to share not only the good, but also things which are quite emotional and traumatic. We can bring it out in the open and take it out of the box. And I'm not going to be quiet about it anymore.
No,
No.
I don't think you should be.
No. Okay. Was life a bit calmer for you after marriage?
It was total bliss for me. If I'm completely honest, I think my husband, he empowered me to constantly be me. He never questioned me. He would always pick me up, uplift me, and really kind of be the person that he felt, you know, I could be, was more confident, more open and everything else. So, you know, I can't fault him in the slightest. And we laughed and enjoyed life so much throughout our marriage. I know, a bit of a caveat, you know, I don't want people to sort of think I've got an Instagram kind of like picturesque kind of marriage. I have cried divorce 3 times.
Really?
Marriage is not always perfect now. You know, you got to work at it.
Yeah.
And particularly when you're living with someone 24/7 for like 8+ years, it's not all roses. So I just wanted to put that up front. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. With 2 different people coming together, and a marriage is about solving things together and growing closer through it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think where my niggles were, and I think where our frustration and tension would come from, was not from the 2 of us. Yeah. It was always external. So it was from my family, you know, not my dad. My dad kind of was very black and white. He kind of accepted us, but he kept his distance. He was just like, get on, you know, nothing to do with me. Whereas my mum, she would constantly feeding me the seed that he's going to leave me at some point. Oh, your marriage is never going to last. Oh, he's going to be doing something to you. You're not going to find out what he's doing. And she really cast doubt in my head about the relationship, like he was never good enough and he was never reliable. So she would chip out my security, and that crept in quite a lot. And I found what I did then was the fact that, you know how it is when people kind of feed you negative behaviors, you then seep out those negative behaviors yourself. So then I became controlling, you know, and I would check when he was going out, what time he was going out, who he was going out with, what time he was coming back, because I was fed all these insecurities and I had all these insecurities inside me. So I kind of like caged him, which was really, really bad. My brother, he himself was quite close-minded. He surrounded himself with equally minded twats, if I want to be honest with you, who were very traditional. They would discuss doing an honor killing. This is before we got married. You know, like maybe ship me to Pakistan and leave me there, or worse.
Who does he think he was? The marriage Gestapo police?
Like, seriously, yeah. I mean, he was just a twat, if I'm honest with you. I mean, luckily my dad could have intervened with my brother. And I remember him telling my brother that if he even laid one hair on my head, he personally would kill him. So that shut my brother down. But that wouldn't stop him feeding my mum with negative thoughts, which would create a lot of kind of like heavy expectation on myself that I had to have this perfect relationship, this perfect husband, this perfect life to prove them wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
that must have been a lot of pressure for you outside of the marriage, influencing you within it.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it led to a lot of stupid arguments. And on reflection, it was me then controlling my husband of when and how long he'd go out for. I would literally place him in the box with a lock, and I was in control of that key.
How did he feel at the time, and what changed things for you both?
If I'm honest, he never really complained. He was never good about it. He never really said anything. There were times we would actually have, like, in earlier in our relationship, we'd have like this 6 months checklist. Let's do a 6 month annual review, biannual review. These are all the things I don't like about you. What are the things that you don't like about me, and how can we improve? He would never write anything that he didn't like about me. I'm like, man, I've got like a list of 30 I don't like about you.
How much time have you got?
The controlling behaviour, even though he wouldn't say anything, it reminded me of my dad, how my dad would control my mum, in terms of like when she would go back to Pakistan, who she met on her side of the family, and da, da, da. And I remember kind of sort of thinking, oh my God, like, this is deja vu. This is like me becoming my dad in terms of controlling. Like, he wasn't a great husband, but he was a great dad, okay? Two very different things. And that's when I thought, I need to really sort my life out. And I decided to get help and go to counselling, which to me was life-changing. I know people have a lot of myths about counselling, whether you have to be really broken to go into counselling. I wouldn't say I was really broken, but I knew I had to change. And I've always been of that mindset that once you hit 18, you have a choice in life. You can change everything. You cannot put it down to, oh, my dad was like that, or my mom was like that, or I'm like this because of X, Y, Z. No, you can change. So for me, it was just like, I need to change. And, counselling is a bit like when you go shopping, when you're hungry, you go in for one thing, but you come out with like 10 other things. You're like, man, I'm not going for that. And you don't even forget what you went in for. And that was counselling for me. It unlocked so many different things.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of those counselling throughout my 30 plus years of being married, which helped me a lot. But my mum would constantly emotionally blackmail me. I remember when she got really sick one time, and I was living in southwest London, and it would take about an hour and a half to drive to where she was. And she would constantly say, if I died, it'd be your fault because you never got here quick enough. So we moved out of London to be closer to her. And that was a nightmare because she was never happy. She would never accept my husband. So, me breaking out the box, even though it allowed all my siblings to freely walk out of the box and gave them freedom, because each and every single one of them married outside the family. So, you know, my young brother married a Trinidadian Indian, my sister married an Englishman, my other sister married a Bengali, my other sister got engaged to a Moroccan. It was only my elder brother that got married to a Pakistani, but my dad didn't approve anyway because he was like, she's not from the right family. You know, it just confirms that you can never please everybody.
Yeah. So you literally helped to pave the way for everyone else in your family to break out of the box.
Yeah, basically. But I was blamed for that because of being the eldest girl. It was like, well, they followed you.
Yeah. So you've got this enigmatic superpower now, Z.
Yeah, you know, the superpower of being the eldest girl, where everybody follows the do as I do. That came like me even though I broke out that box and found my love, went to live the life I really wanted to live. It did come with a lot of emotional and mental turmoil for me internally. I was then invited to my brother's wedding. I knew I made my bread, and I always kind of like remind myself of that. But you know, it didn't allow me to embrace the exclusion and the hurt that I felt for so many years. I don't think I actually understood the hurt of the exclusion, of not belonging, and what that would do to me. So for me, it was mainly that. I mean, my parents were great grandparents, and I would always be grateful for that. But, you know, there were occasions when my brother would come to our house, and I know when my son was young, and he was like, oh, he's a bastard in our eyes. You know, it's not, well, you can only have a bastard if the dad's not around. It's like, his dad's here. And it was just because he wasn't of the same religion. And there were times my brother would face up to me and threaten to beat me up. And I'd be like, I'll go face to face with him. It was just like, you're going to come fight me, I'll fight you. And I'm quite petite anyway, and I was more petite then. I'm going for menopause now, so I'm not so petite now. But, you know, then at the time, I thought, I'm going to knock you out. I will knock you out if you're going to come for me. So it was that constant battle.
I can imagine you would have knocked him out with a slam dunk, girl.
In my head, yeah. You know, I would have been on that floor, but you know. But no, the exclusion didn't just kind of like happen with my mum and brother. I think it hurt more because my sisters excluded me from groups as well. So they would meet and not let me know, you know, and they would live quite locally, not too far away. And I'd find out they would went for lunch or dinner, meet up, and they wouldn't invite me. And that played on me a lot for years, you know, up until recently, I would say, you know, because it is that belonging, that wanting to be part of this perfect family, this perfect extended family, which, you know, I should have realised I would never have got that. So I've always sought approval. I've always tried to get validation from my family that my act of love was never a bad decision. And my husband was a great guy, and I wanted them to realise that. And it affected my mental health, and I compromised it a lot, if I'm honest. And I think I found that heartbreaking. You know, looking back now, I just wish I never put myself in those situations. I didn't need to prove to them that I was a good girl anymore. You know, I just wasn't good enough for them. You know, and that hurt me the most, was knowing that I just was not good enough for them.
It's really clear to see from both of our experiences that in any situation, whatever decision we ended up making caused us hurt in one way or another, didn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we're at that stage now where we can take some reflection. You know, now, gone through all of it, and like 30 something years later.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a little while to put the penny to drop, to be fair. You know, this is probably good timing. So, you know, let's get to that stage where we do in each way our episodes, where we take a deep breath. So deep breath in. Ooh. And deep breath out.
Oh, hussa.
Yeah. And let's ask that question to each other.
See, what advice would you give to your younger self at this stage of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this one quite a bit. And I think, you know, if I could go back and really speak to my younger self, I think this piece of advice I wish I told myself would have changed so much of my hurt. It's that you've got to go beyond the information. And what I mean by that is like cut through all the thoughts. It's our thoughts that create a narrative. It's a story that we tell ourselves. We need to go beneath the thoughts and really head towards the sensations, your feelings. This is where the doors will open. So suffering goes with what we tell ourselves. And that is when the mind is locked. Yeah. And you've got to learn to be present. When things go bad, or you feel despair, or you feel like, oh my God, I'm just not getting anywhere, you've got to remind yourself, like, why are you acting on love? When you do this, you bring clarity to your thoughts and you suffer less. You're not glued into it. And that's the narrative you've got to tell yourself. You've got to stop feeding it with thoughts and start feeling like with the love that you have. And I think that will change how you view things. And that's when you become free to move. So for me, I feel I've wasted decades on the information and the narrative that I was given by my family members, which created these negative thoughts because I was so keen to please. I just wished I'd listened to myself as I am now, because only now I feel free.
Very, very deep and very important way to think, isn't it? Because we can't change the past, and
No.
we can reflect on it, and that helps us with our healing, but possibly other people as well.
Yeah. And it's about the story we tell ourselves, like,
Yeah.
change your thoughts.
Yeah.
How about you, Em?
I would say love trumps lust any day. Find someone who is kind, understands you, connects with you on a deep level, is authentic, and communicates with emotional intelligence. Someone who shows you respect and that you can grow even better together with consistency. Take your time finding the person you want to spend your life with, and don't settle for anything less than you fully deserve. Don't let your fears, your head, stop you from acting on your own gut instincts. If it doesn't feel right, it isn't right. Listen to the signs in your body. That is your body's way of giving you an early warning system. Notice and reflect. How do I feel? How is my body feeling? If it feels ill, a bad person makes you unhappy, scared, these are warning signs. A red flag is a red flag is a red flag. If you allow any harmful behavior and forgive it or make excuses for it, it will continue and quite possibly get worse. Protect yourself with strong boundaries and take care of you at all costs to stay safe. If someone's actions do not match their words consistently, notice this and be curious why this is happening. Consistency in actions and words are for the truthful. Words without actions to follow through consistently are false hope. And finally, we can't live our lives for other people to please them, appease them, or save them. Let them do it. Heal and save themselves. Everyone is responsible only for themselves. The only person we can change is ourselves through our actions, words, thoughts, and feelings. And if you are in any form of an abusive relationship and think things may improve, they won't. It's time to consider what's going to be best for you. We would love it if you could click the subscribe button and add your comments and share us with as many people as you feel would enjoy our discussions and stories.
We would so love to hear your stories. So email us anonymously with your first name, any stories about being in the box and getting out of that box. Our email is in the link below.
We can't wait for you to join us next time, where we will be discussing relationships. Were there more boxes? Join us to find out.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for the next episode. I'm so excited.